So today we're going to learn how to multiply matrices. Now, multiplying matrices is actually not that hard. You just have to remember a couple things. First, in order for us to multiply these two, we have to make sure they match. So, we're going to look at rows and columns. Write down 2 by 2 because this is a 2 by 2 matrices. And this is also a 2 by 2 matrices. Now, if these two numbers match, then you can multiply them. If they don't match, you can't. But more on that later. So, how do we multiply matrices? It's a little complicated because while you would normally think like, oh, I'm going to multiply 2 by 1, 4 by 3, 5 by 2, and negative 3 by 1 and get my answer, that's not how it works. In order to multiply matrices, we are going to multiply the first row by the first column. And then we're going to multiply the first row by the second column. The first row on the first column is right here. The first row on the second column is right here. The second row in the first column is right here. And the second row and second column is right here. So, first row, first column, plus first row, second column, second row plus first column, second row plus second column. So when we write it out like this, you can see that it's just this by this, this by this, this by this, this by this. So everything gets multiplied and nobody feels left out. So let's try it out. 2 times 1 is 2. 4 times 2 is 8. So this goes right here. So that equals 10. So we have 10 in the first part of our box. Then we have 2 times 3, which is 6, plus 4 times 1, which is 4, and that also equals 10. So we have that in the second part of our box. Then we have 5 times 1, which is 5, plus negative 3 times 2, which is negative 6, and that is equal to negative 1. Then we have 5 times 3, which is 15, and negative 3 times 1, which is negative 3, and that is equal to 12. So our final matrices is right here. So as you can see, it's pretty simple multiplying matrices. You just have to remember the key rule. Row 1, column 1. Row 1, column 2. Row 2, column 1. Row 2, row 2. That way, everything gets multiplied and nobody gets left out. And they're always going to be in that specific way. So we just multiplied a 2 by 2 with a 2 by 2. But what happens when we try to multiply a 2 by 2 with a 2 by 3? So we have 1, 2, 5, 1, 3, 3 for our first, and then 4, 2, 3, 1 for our second. Now, can we multiply these? Is it possible to have this multiplied by this? Let's check. Yes, it is possible by those twos matching up. So we can successfully multiply these two matrices. It'll be a little complicated and a little tricky, but it's the same concept. So we're going to write out 1 times 4, which is 4, plus 2 times 3, which is 6, so we have our 10. And then we have 1 times 2, which is 2, plus 2 times 1, which is also 2, and that is equal to 4. Then we have 5 times 4, which is a big whopping 20, plus 1 times 3, which is just 3, so we have 23. Then we have 5 times 2, which is 10, plus 1 times 1, which is 1, so we have 11. Then 3 times 4, which is 12, plus 3 times 3, which is 9, so we have 21. And then we have 3 times 2, which is 6, and 3 times 1, which is 3, which gives us 9. So our matrices ends up being and this is our final answer. So let's look at some problems that we can't multiply. For instance, we couldn't multiply these true matrices because it's 2 by 3 and a 2 by 2, and these two do not match up. So we cannot multiply these two. But if we were to flip this and have we could multiply this because then it would be a 3 by 2 and these two would match up. Pretty simple.